Hello and a very warm welcome. Thanks for tuning in to News 9 Live. It is an important day in the United States with Georgia being at the center, especially for Indians out there, because stating that there have been documented instances of hate crimes against Hindu Americans over the last few decades in many parts of United States, the United States state of Georgia has passed a resolution condemning Hinduphobia and anti-Hindu bigotry, making it the first US state to take such a legislative measure. The resolution was introduced by Representatives Lauren McDonald and Todd Jones from the Forsyth County in the suburbs of Atlanta, which is home to one of the largest Hindu and Indian American diaspora communities in Georgia. Now, condemning anti-Hindu bigotry, the resolution states that Hinduism is one of the world's largest and oldest religions with over 1.2 billion adherents in over 100 countries. It encompasses an array of diverse traditions and belief systems that value mutual respect, peace, and acceptance. The resolution also observed that the American Hindu community has been a major contributor to diverse sectors in the United States, such as medicine, science, engineering, information technology, hospitality, finance, academia, manufacturing, energy. Well, you name it, Indians are doing it. It also noted that the community's contributions of yoga, Ayurveda, meditation, food, music, and cultural arts have enriched the cultural fabric of United States, apart from being widely adopted in the society, enhancing lives of millions. So what and how does this legislation impact the lives of Hindus, not just in Georgia, but other states as well? The timing of it, amid calls of galvanizing Khalistani support, and what is Hinduphobia and why we must challenge Hinduphobia. To talk more about that, I'm being joined by my colleague Pankaj Mishra here in the studio. Also with us on the broadcast soon is going to be Ambassador Deepak Vora, former diplomat. But, Pankaj, just to get the ball rolling here, right. Firstly, for the benefit of the viewers out there, quickly, in layman term, what is Hinduphobia? And if I've missed out on any salient feature or point from the resolution, do help the viewers with what the resolution that has been passed by Georgia is all about.
Well, yes, Kabir, there are two aspects to it. First of all, Hinduphobia, as it is being perceived outside India, is something that needs to be called out, and that's what Atlanta, Georgia has done as of now. Hinduphobia, as the name says, the fear of Hindus, and as we had heard in the UN resolutions also, the same coinage for Islamophobia. Now, with incidents like the attacks and the hooliganism at the Indian consulates, across the world, and also trying to picture or paint Hindus as a medium of terrorist activities is something that is being termed as Hinduphobia. Obviously, many countries, many societies have accepted and have acknowledged the fact that Hinduism is an age-old religion, one of the largest and the oldest religions in the world, not just in a particular continent. And hence the true picture, the correct imagery is also very much important, and how best to tackle those forces which try to diminish or tarnish the image of Hinduism is something that the groups, there are so many groups, not just in the US but also in the UK, who are trying to work towards that, and Atlanta, Georgia has become the first state in the US to bring a legislation against it, which means the protection of Hinduism. To put it in layman's term, how the religion Hinduism should not be painted into the wrong picture without verified facts, obviously.
Absolutely. Ambassador Deepak Vora also with us on the broadcast. Ambassador, help us understand why at this point in time it's crucial to be challenging Hinduphobia, and also, looking at specifically at the United States, also the West in general. Is there an inherent propensity to discriminate against Hindus? And if such is the case, can Georgia become a blueprint for the rest of the US states or for the West in general?
Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to be with you, sir. I learned so much from you and from your colleague. I was listening with great interest. Thank you. I served in the United States from 1982 to 1985 in the embassy. Atlanta was my favorite destination. The then mayor, a fellow called Andrew Young, who's now over 90 years old, was very active, very fond of India. And he used to often quote what Martin Luther King, when he was shot, had said once, that to other countries I go as a tourist, to India I go as a pilgrim. So Georgia has always had this fascination for Indian culture. If I may use the term, it's Indomania. What we are seeing today in the world, sir, is the coexistence of Indophobia and Indomania. Now, Indophobia is the term referring to negative feelings, fear, etc., of the Republic of India, Indian people, Indian culture. Indophobia is in the context of anti-Indian prejudice, means that they act negatively, etc. But at the same time, we also have Indomania now sweeping the world, sir, whether it's the International Day of Yoga or whether it's Ayurveda or whether it's whatever has to do with India. In the United States, I go there twice a year. You'll see that this frightens a lot of the old colonials who thought that they were masters of the universe. What is also happening, that people of Indian origin, Indians, the Americans are too dumb to distinguish between the religion of one Indian and another. They just think everybody who comes from there is a Hindu, and therefore they should, whatever they have to do, they have to do. So what we are seeing today, sir, is this growing fascination, the growing high position. Joe Biden's cabinet, I think half of them are of Indian origin, apart from the vice president, etc. We have an Indian prime minister, Indian origin prime minister in the United Kingdom, several Indian origin people heading Latin American countries, Caribbean nations, Mauritius, etc., whatever it is, sir. The reality is that these two trends exist simultaneously, and what the example of Georgia shows, that it is the trend towards Indomania, appreciation, knowledge of India, the desire to learn more, that seems to predominate. And there'll be some chaps like these fellows you are showing on your screen, a few Khalistanis, etc., who go around trying to create violence. Then the American, when I was posted there, when Mrs. Gandhi was assassinated, they also came out and screamed outside the mission. And I did ask the Americans that, why don't you do something? They said, look, we need to identify these characters. Now that we know who they are, we'll deal with them appropriately. Many of them were dealt with, if I may say so, appropriately. So, sir, for a long time, you're going to see these two conflicting trends because a lot of people now in the United States, see, the China dream is over, sir. So now it's the India dream that is predominating. And many of them have told me something very interesting. I had to come back and research it. An American friend who teaches at Harvard University and is an expert in ancient Greek and Roman civilization talked about a fellow called Apollonius, who came and he says, in India, I found a race of mortals living upon the earth, but not adhering to it, inhabiting cities, but not being fixed to them, possessing everything, but possessed by nothing. And it's actually written somewhere in one of the rooms over there that this is the ancient wisdom of India. There may be a lot of knowledge in the West, sir, but more and more people across the globe recognize the repository of wisdom.
Well, Ambassador Vora, if you think the Indomania is eventually going to overpower Hinduphobia, what about this kind of support, the Khalistani support that is being galvanized? I mean, you just spoke about those visuals, and that's not just the one set we have. We've seen so many skirmishes taking place from Canada, Australia, to the Times Square, the kind of protests that are taking shape in the United States. Do you think this is going to go a long way in tackling the galvanizing support of Khalistani supporters?
Sir, these things are counterproductive. These idiots don't seem to understand, because when they indulge in violence and you show it on your screens, the average American, if there is such a thing, the all-American kid or the all-American man or woman will say, who on earth are these characters wearing the strange turbans and wielding their sticks and so on? No, it's going to be totally counterproductive. Some governments, particularly Canada and maybe the United Kingdom, might try to use it to pressure India, already the fourth largest economy in the world. Not fifth, sir, we've overtaken Germany, already the third most powerful military in the world, the Indian community, the Indian diaspora, the United States, 5 million, highest positions, etc., highest per capita income of any immigrant community in the United States. So all this will carry on, but let me assure you, sir, and I say this with total knowledge, I go twice in a year to the United States, the goodwill and admiration for India far outweighs any kind of disapproval of India and what India stands for.
Right, Ambassador Vora. Pankaj Mishra this side. Been a long time since we interacted, and good to have you back once again. Now, talking about the similar sentiments that you echoed as far as the Indians are concerned in the United States, Atlanta obviously stands out with a lot of support and a lot of temples also there as far as Hinduism is concerned. If we move towards the western side, speaking of Seattle, there again, it passed a law which prohibited discrimination against casteism within the Indian society in the United States. Now, this was vehemently opposed by, by the proponents of this law, which has been passed by Georgia. Do you believe that Indians too, I mean, with all their glory and their might and their knowledge, still need to walk this line, a bit with caution, so as to they are not seen as discriminators within the Indian society as far as caste is concerned?
Is that question for me?
Yes, Ambassador Vora.
I can't hear you.
Yeah. Is my audio clear with you now?
No, it's coming across clear. So what you were asking was that should we tread carefully?
Yes, as far as Seattle is concerned, it has passed a law which prohibits casteism within the which is predominant in Indian society there in Seattle, and that's why they have chosen to bar it or ban it. So, do you believe that as an Indian?
Excuse me, my throat has cracked up. It's something to do with the Chinese
virus. You can grab a glass
virus,
of water if you want, sir. Yeah.
So let me put it across to you like this: that the caste system of India has been totally misrepresented in some parts. They think we go around beating up people who belong to different castes. We don't recognize them, etc., etc. But the reality now is that in the United States, where they had their own caste system amongst the rich people and the not so rich people, the blacks and the whites and the Hispanics, they understand that we are trying to create, it's an experiment that is going on in India, incomplete at the moment. We're trying to create a nation out of disparate, different communities. So I would not take this very, very seriously. The law that they have passed does not target the Indian community. It targets everybody in the world. And in some way, if you read it very, very carefully, the legislation, it is that the United States, like India, believes in pluralism, multiculturalism, non-discrimination, etc. I believe that's a very powerful message. But we sometimes tend to look only at the negative part of it. Let me tell you, sir, I'll quote to you my kid who lives in the United States. A friend of his told me when I was last in New York a few months ago, he says to me, he says, Mr. Ambassador, this is the best time to be an Indian in the United States. What more can I add?
Well, absolutely. Let's circle back to what India said at the United Nations in January of 2022. It said, recognize new forms of religiophobia, especially anti-Hindu, anti-Buddhist, and anti-Sikh phobias. Ambassador Vora, do you think this particular statement in a setup like the United Nations has gone a long way, but still a lot more needs to be done?
Oh, no question about it. By the way, is the United Nations still alive? I'm not quite sure. But if it is, we're very good. Of course, we've talked about this. We've made a statement that you guys need to curb religious intolerance. You keep abusing us and saying, you're not tolerant of this, you're not tolerant of that, etc., etc. You keep referring to 1984, what happened, the almost genocide, the near genocide of the Sikhs and so on. But you yourselves are guilty of so many things in the Western country. So I believe there are two things today that the new India evokes, two sentiments in the Western nations. One is admiration, the other is fear. And what you are seeing, the inevitable, inexorable, unstoppable rise of India, these two sentiments will continue to coexist for some time.
Right, Ambassador Vora, also we have seen very recently when there was some hooliganism reported at the Indian Embassy in London. Then the Indian side too flexed its muscles, and because there was no security provided to the consulate there, or not enough security was provided, India too withdrew the security from the British High Commission here in Delhi. Now, talking in terms of what the Indian government can do or what it should, do you believe that a proper messaging too has to go out from the Indian side as far as the protection of the rights of the Indians is concerned at foreign shores?
Oh, no question about it. We do not believe in tit for tat. We believe in reciprocity. You might remember, sir, 10 years or a little more than that, there was an Indian Deputy Consul General in New York who was strip searched for some visa fraud involving her maid and so on. Then we promptly withdrew the external barriers from outside the US Embassy, and Washington, D.C. very quickly came down to earth. So did the British. As somebody said, I'm sorry if I have to quote this, the British are a nation of shopkeepers. Deny them their bread and butter and they'll start worshipping you, so that they want to get back whatever they're getting from India. But no, sir, we are sending the message. The message is going out loud and clear. We are privileged to have an outstanding Minister for External Affairs. Both of us served together in Washington, D.C. Brilliant, absolutely 100 times more knowledgeable than I can ever claim to be. He knows what he's saying. He's brought the message home that, listen, guys, India is here to stay. And if you are looking for a nation that can be the new China, if I may say so, the new China plus one, even greater than China, well, that is India. This is being increasingly recognized now, sir.
And at the same time, Ambassador Vora, do you think such a legislation that has been passed by Georgia, do you think that's going to help in consolidating quote unquote anti-India support as well on foreign shores?
Consolidating anti-India support. What?
Yes.
No, not at all. On the contrary, the other American states will take a leaf from what Georgia has done. They've done this in the past on many occasions. They passed this legislation. You might even see it in, excuse me, in the U.S. Congress coming in due course. They will also pass something very similar. And I'm quite sure that, I don't know, I don't want to comment on American domestic politics, but if a fellow called whatever Trump he was, if as we see that he might just come back, and if that does happen, then you can expect many exciting things to happen. But other states, most certainly, where there is a substantial Indian diaspora, they will also pass similar legislation that does not target India. It tries to protect the rights of all people of Indian origin and those from other countries.
Right, Ambassador Vora, do stay on with us. Pankaj, I mean, the words coming from Ambassador Vora and the resolution itself, I mean, it certainly is a proud day for all Indians out, abroad, especially in Georgia and the United States. They've spoken about information technology, academia, energy, medicine, yoga, meditation, food and culture everywhere. They've really highlighted the importance of Indians and Indian culture.
Well, absolutely. I mean, this is not a hidden fact. Now the world too, not just the United States, but the whole world acknowledges to the very fact that when it comes to these salient features, what Dr. Ambassador Vora mentioned, India is a leading voice in that regard. But having said that, the naysayers also are there. Remember, Kabir, a very recent Time magazine report on how the Indian government actually allegedly violated human rights, in connection with the search of Amritpal. And that is something which, again, underscores or underlines the very fact that no matter how much Indians have achieved, there would still be some scrutiny being done and there would be naysayers. So, as far as Time magazine's report was concerned, the points that it was highlighting does not in any way add up to any substantial outcome, but it appears to be a failed attempt or half-hearted attempt in order to paint or diminish the image of India. Now, talking about India on a bigger scale, talking about Hinduism on a microcosmic level, that's what this basic resolution in Georgia goes on to secure, goes on to prove that a religion, a society as old as the humanity itself is, now being questioned or being put under the scanner should not be made a general rule or a generalized rule, and hence a mechanism of protection or a mechanism of safeguarding the interest should be very much there.
Absolutely. And you quoted that Time magazine as well, and we really tried our best to debunk the kind of bias the Western media has, especially the United States, when it comes to India, and calling its human rights issues out as well. Ambassador Vora was with us on the broadcast. Ambassador Vora, I'm sure you must have gone through that Time piece yourself. Why do you think the United States, feels so freely and frivolous about weaponizing democracies and the human rights issue, specifically pertaining to India?
Over the last 30, 40 years, it's become a new way to pressure India as well as other countries. These are no human rights. These are human wrongs that these fellows have created. They don't even know what it means. Sir, you want to talk to me about human rights? Let me talk to you about, what was that chap? Black Lives Matter and et cetera, et cetera.
George Floyd.
In the US. No, sir. No, they have no right to speak about this kind of thing. But let me tell you one thing, sir. And the millions of people who watch your program, you are very highly regarded, and so is your colleague. Take a map of India, and I lost my throat, my voice, because I was in Jaipur yesterday, and the mic system wasn't working, so I had to yell and scream to a group of Rotarians. Take a map of India, tilt it over to its side, and then the northeast becomes the north, and the Jammu Kashmir becomes the west, etc., and then the south becomes the east. The question that I ask always, sir, why should I accept the view of India proposed by a joker called Gerardus Mercator 450 years ago? He's a Dutch cartographer. He drew that map. And so this is north, this is south, this is east, this is west. Why should I accept that? What is happening in India today under the present government, sir? We are taking an Indian view of India. And this upsets a lot of people, not the younger people. This is the old timers who think that everything that the British did was God's bounty to India. No, thank you. Happy birthday. But we are now looking, our younger people, and remember, sir, we are the youngest country in the world, median age of 29. So what, 68 or 69 crore Indians are less than 29 like me, and 68 or 69 crore are more than 29 like others. So what we are seeing amongst our youngsters, sir, I have 34 crore students in India today. 33 crore is the population of the United States. These people have a clear understanding, a much better understanding of India. The old fogies like me, I'm 72, will fade away into oblivion in a few years. But these kids who are tremendous, you know, you've heard of a company called Deloitte. They carry out a millennial attitude survey every year. Google it. You'll see that the most positive are the Indians, the millennials and the post-millennial. They want to do something. Oh, big car, big house, the American dream, all that. But more than that, they want to give back to India something. This
Well, on
makes
that
my
positive
heart
note,
swell with pride.
on that positive note, Ambassador Vora, it was a pleasure speaking to you. Many thanks for joining with us and helping us out with your insightful inputs, Pankaj. Always a pleasure talking to you. Well, it is a positive day. It's a red letter day, as a matter of fact. Georgia becoming the first United States state to pass that resolution against Hinduphobia, condemning anti-Hindu bigotry. Will the other states follow suit? Well, we'll have to find out. Thanks so much for watching. Keep tuned to News9 Live.